Hello everyone, this is Caillou back with Bradley Rose, and this is another Moxtober daily wrap-up. Moxtober is a month-long event running throughout October in which each day has a specific prompt, from which you make a custom card and share it. So today's prompt was Cynic. So when I thought of Cynic, I, well, first of all, I'm very sad that no one made like a Simic Cynic just for like the rhyming, but my thought was kind of like control-y effects, like countering effects, or like protection effects. Basically, stuff that just disregards what your opponent is doing in some way. What did you think of?
Um, I guess I was just thinking about more of the concept of presuming what your opponent might be doing. Um, it, it was more like I was more like thinking that someone is doing something good for you. So I thought about commander games and like, I'll help you out, and you're really thinking, they're really helping themselves out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I think I don't play enough multiplayer for that to have been on my radar, but I think yeah, for sure. Just this idea of like, okay, I'll make a deal with you, but any sign of funny business, deals off, buddy.
Yeah, but that's like a very hard to represent or narrow portion of the games of Magic.
I think some people here did do some interesting multiplayer effects, but yeah, we'll see. So what effect do you want, or what card do you want to start off on first?
Well, let's start it off with Eavesdrop. Eavesdrop is pay two blue blue instant uh, counter target spell, but it also costs two less if you to cast as long as your turn. Flavor text is I knew it. So with this counter spell, the what really comes into play, the dynamic that feels like you're being cynical about what your opponent is doing, is if you had something in hand you could have cast main phase, but you think that your opponent could cast something and will cast something during your end of turn, then you just purposely skip over and say pass, and then they cast something during end of turn step, and you're like, oh, eavesdrop, and then you got them.
I kind of like it. Also, kind of feels like that being a hypocrite, which is something that comes with eavesdropping, which is like there's some saying where it's like if you don't want to hear bad things said about you, don't eavesdrop. But like you're using a counterspell, but then you're like, hey, how dare you use a counterspell on my turn? No,
Well,
no.
yeah.
And like there have been other designs which kind of like play into that space, but all of those have been like you can only cast this spell during your turn, in the custom space. I like this one because you can actually just get normal value out of it, and then sometimes you have those cool limited blowout moments, combat trick, and they're like got me.
Mm. Oh, that has, yeah, yeah. So the gameplay that I had described about end of turn, that can also come into play with earlier in the turn, where you might have say a 4 drop, and you have 4 lands open, but you only use 2 of that mana during the turn when you could have used it for 4 for better effect, but you held up the 2 just in case they had their own counterspell.
Yeah, and like I think we talked earlier at some point about how it's hard to make common designs because like making something simple and still like a functional fun card to play with and that's also like flavorful is an underrated art. So coming back to this,
Mm.
yeah, I like this for that reason. Um, a card that is also very simple, but in a completely different direction. Mad Cynicism. Um, 2 white and a blue for an enchantment. 1 line of text. Bird creatures are humans. Bird
Oh,
creatures are humans. Okay, okay, yeah, sure. Roll with it. Like,
is is this the okay? So there's 2 things. One is I know that there's some history with cynicism and the origins of cynic, but there's also the government's watching us with the birds. I'm not sure which one is which.
I think it was the former because I couldn't track down the original art, but the original art that went on the original render of this had like one of those old timey paintings that looked like Aristotle or Plato or one of those.
Yeah. That's probably digging into some cool history that I'm not quite cultured on, but that is a crazy line of text.
Yeah, it definitely feels like one of those custom cards where like no one's gonna play this. It's not a card that is like played, but it's a card that you put it there because you can just be like, huh, well, that's interesting.
I would definitely want to try to see what birds I want to put into my humans deck.
Just like keep yeah, I guess in Commander you can do some if you can do some wacky like against the odds Commander do some wacky stuff there.
Mm.
Hmm.
Speaking of creature types, for this theme, I enjoyed Genodes, Cynic of Meletis, 2 in a blue for 2/3 human advisor. You have protection from illusions, but also 1 in a blue, tap, destroy target non illusion. Its controller creates a token that's a copy of it, except it's an illusion, in addition to its other types. So this one combines two things. One thing is the using the illusion creature type for the whole cynical mind thought, and there's some other cards from that have been designed that also explore this same space. There's also the cynic origin meaning as well being weaved into the appropriate Theros theming.
Like you definitely could have kept it in the like real world like Genodes, Cynic of whatever city, but it's like now we're gonna do Miletus. It's Theros. Greece? What's that? So and I love how like you're incentivized to like use this to like flicker your own creatures in a weird way. You surround
Mm.
yourself with illusions. I like the flavor of that. And like you were mentioning, another card that does a similar thing is un what are you called? Unbelievable. It's two green blue or yeah, two green blue red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create an illusion token that's all colors and has this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand. So very powerful, but then if you want to actually start playing out your other cards, their potential dwindles quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, the normal thing to do if you want to maximize this is to not cast spells anymore. But this also makes me go, "Oh, maybe what I want to do is play a draw spells deck where I'm only playing divinations, rummages, and any green cards that draw me cards, and this could be the whole deck."
Just slip a reliquary tower in there. You're
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. Um, the there's also the like if you're just gonna go and hold up your spells without a lot of draw spells, you can also go for activated abilities as your way to spend mana.
Oh yeah, we saw that with in standard with Fires of Invention plus Kenrith and the Cavaliers.
Oh yeah, great point of when you switch into not not spending mana on spells mode.
So yeah, and I also I like the flavor and the art on this. I think those like I mentioned earlier that also like cards that can make flavor without um, needing flavor text and stuff are really cool. But sometimes like those extra flourishes add a little special something. I knew that the world couldn't be real, but I wanted to hold on to it for just a little while longer. Like I
Oh
like that.
wow. That's pretty deep. Okay, so speaking of deep, from within, from the pits emerges Cynic Pit Lord. This one is a demon, 3 blue, black, red, 1/1, flying, haste, menace, tribute 7. Uh, and when Cynic Pit Lord enters the battlefield, if its tribute was not paid, target opponent's life total becomes 1. So this gets into the combo of if you don't pay the tribute, if their life is 1, but this thing's power is 1, and it has haste and menace and flying, so it's likely they get into the situation where they're gonna die anyway by the hit from the 1. So you're kind of being cynical about like, yeah, you're gonna pay the tribute. Like, there's no doubt you're gonna pay the tribute. And
You're being bullied into it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Although, of course, it could be at that point in the game where they're gonna die anyway if they pay the tribute. But this would work extra well in a commander game where they might not pay the tribute and they will go down to 1, but it was totally in your best interest to not attack them, and they kind of called it, I guess. If they would have died to the tribute and they didn't give that to you and you wanted to attack someone else at one. I don't know. There's some like little difference in gameplay when you have other players.
Hmm. Yeah, and like since it allows you to choose someone, you can be like, "Hey, homie, let me have this giant boy." So,
Ah, yeah, that's right. Tribute lets you choose. Yeah, you can start teaming up.
yeah, similar in name, though not so much in function, is Cynical Lord of not of the pit, of what we don't know, but it's a human noble which you can tap, pay one life, and then you can choose one. Each player draws a card, each player discards a card, or each player sacrifices a creature. I think the last mode is a little bit stronger than the first two, but I like this as like a like let them all have what they want, whatever. I'll get my own in the end because like
Yeah,
obviously you're playing this in deck where you can break the symmetry somehow.
right. Yeah, you can get into that trying to think about maximizing like which one benefits you most well doesn't benefit the others as much.
Yeah, along a similar line of like we have where are you? Gruesome Supper. Black and a black. Target player sacrifices a creature, you gain life equal to its toughness at sorcery speed. So pretty decent removal. What really makes it strong is that you can sacrifice two lands to get it back into your hand. So sometimes in the late game, if your opponent has like a large board, your removal spell can just turn into, okay, I'm going to kill like two or three of your creatures and stabilize by gaining a bunch of life. And that's value.
Yeah, that's intense. You could really do a comeback there. Definitely late, like very good for late game uh, gameplay. Like it ties right into it. That's when you need the life, but that's also when you have the lands to afford for the buyback.
Mm. Very mechanically sound card.
All right, so let's go with Rash Picketer. This one is two in a red for human townsfolk. 2/2. It can't block, and it has this ability word cynical. Whenever players finish voting, deal one damage to each opponent who voted for a choice you didn't vote for. This is really cool that you. Uh, this is about like maybe getting into players' motivations um, as a theme for cynicism, and voting is definitely a great way to demonstrate whether someone was on your side or not.
Yeah, and I like mechanically like um, the Will of the Council cards. Like I think they're naturally um, tough choices, but I like this idea of like further punishing opponents for not like choosing the same as you. I think this could be interesting space to explore in a future conspiracy. Also, I love that the flavor text is basically just "fuck you" with extra words. I defend my right to disagree with you, not
Yeah,
not the classic quote of "I may disagree with you, but I will defend your right to say to
right.
the death." I'm
Yeah,
butchering that quote, but yeah. I was like, no, I'm just going to disagree with you. That's the only right that we have.
yeah.
I think there's another card which has a similar kind of screw you kind of feeling, which is let me pull it up here. Blase Disposition. It's I think mechanically should be a little familiar. It's Lunar Force, but it has that flavor text of wow, a fireball, the pinnacle of virginality, which also I take issue with because again, this is cheapened Lunar Force. So who are you to talk, Mister Blue Mage flavor text man?
this don't take it personally, Mark.
One suggestion that I saw Mark talking about was potentially adding Flash, and that adds to this weird dynamic of like you can't use it in response to spells then, but you can
Oh
like
yeah,
you can flash it in at weird times. There might be some interaction that's a problem with, but I think it's an interesting thing to look for.
yeah. I if I were doing blue mage versus blue mage, and I know that there's counter spells involved where it's like two blue mana to hold up is the way to go. I might wait for if they cast something main phase and they intentionally leave up that counterspell mana after, and because they usually pass the turn, let you go, and then counter if they want. What you can do then is flash in during their end of turn, thinking you're probably gonna be like countering something during my turn. I think so, and so
You can force him to
they
run out the counter magic on this one. Oh, yeah. And like that also
yeah
saves you mana on your own turn if you want to tap out
yeah
for a
you get them
finisher.
stuck. You're like, oh dang it! I totally was gonna counter your big like Leviathan you were gonna cast next turn, but now Blase Disposition blocks me for that turn.
That's yeah, that's actually that's super cool. That's a really cool play pattern I hadn't considered.
Uh, a wild play pattern is Mox Cynic. Mox Cynic is you pay 0, it's an artifact, tap, add 2 mana of any one color, activate only if a source and opponent control destroyed a permanent you control, cause you to lose life, cause you to discard cards, or cause you to sacrifice permanents this turn.
The cause you to lose life part is the one that gives me pause because if you're playing like a deck that's almost entirely instant speed, suddenly this is just a better Moxen. If I mean if they're planning on attacking you, was my assumption. So
Oh
it's like
yeah, you have to
suddenly.
play instance speeds a lot. Like everything in your deck is that, and then they play Raging Goblin. You're like, ah ha ha.
Though I suppose in formats where you can play Moxen, attacking is probably a little bit less common, or like not less common, but there are decks which can get by without it. So
Yeah,
still,
I guess so. I guess the efficient burn decks, playing Price of Progress and Fire Blast and stuff, this will get you a lot of mana. But maybe it's not as good in that environment. I don't know. Maybe it is.
yeah, I think of the Mox designs that have been submitted so far by Cajun, this is the first one where I've seen them, and I was like, little bit scared of this one. But I
Huh.
think overall, I vibe with it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so one thing that we've seen a lot of different designs over the past few days, but if I remember right, we have not yet seen a Planeswalker design submitted until today. Tybalt Thoughtless Cynic. Um, and this is a pretty cool design. So, 4 mana Planeswalker, you can +1 to deal 2 damage to target creature, but it deals 3 damage to you. +1 to sacrifice a creature at random if you do draw a card. And -7 deals 4 damage to each creature and each other Planeswalker, add red, 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 red. So I like the idea that, like, sure, you're getting value for killing your opponent's creatures and, like, drawing cards, but you're actively hemorrhaging resources to do so in terms of life and board presence, but you get rewarded through the alt for doing so.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that no matter like Tibble first incarnation was like, okay, you're dealing with the devil here. You have to discard at random. It's just a risky thing to go and play with Tibble. Here, you get what you want. It's it's less risky. You can set your creatures to no matter what you like that when it's discarded. Um, the randomness helps make it like a little tough. But even with the other one where you're hurting their creatures, yes, it hurts you. But then also, if you build towards your ultimate, there's not as many creatures to board wipe on their end because you kept destroying like hurting their creatures. Like it's not as good in the late game because you decided to go with the hurt their creatures route. If you went with your own creatures, that's good, but it forces you into that random thing.
Yeah, it's like, Tybalt, don't you care about using your resources? Nah. Thinking in the long term is for colors not named red.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great transition into. Oh, geez, what's the Cynic of Fervor? Cynic of Fervor is a white blue orc citizen. 2/2. Cynic of Fervor can't be sacrificed, can't attack its owner, and creatures do not have and can't have haste. And flavor text is, why are you all rushing in again?
Like, guys, maybe we shouldn't just beat face. Sometimes that loses to life gain and blockers and like all that stuff. And yeah, like
I thought this was a very elegant way of demonstrating a difference in mindset by color shifting a creature type that is usually in a certain color, in this case red, and then putting it on the enemy side. And then the citizen part, an existing type, that's pretty funny because they got the berserker type might overlap with orc a lot, and berserker feels less like you can have berserker citizens. I don't want to go and say that citizens can't be berserker.
but like in this specific case, it's like the the use of it is like this more like, hold on, guys. we should think about this. And I like that in the end, actually, he does convince his buddies because creatures don't have haste and can't have haste, so manages
Oh,
to
that's
calm them
true.
all down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can imagine they're like, "Huh, I never thought of it that way before." That's
Hmm.
funny. Wow, that is good gameplay if you combine for Jeskai deck.
Yeah. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to quickly mention we were talking about like the first planeswalker design, but we also got two planeswalkers this time. So the other one is Zusiti the Skeptic, one green and a white. It can give a creature +1/+1 in vigilance. It can either it has that thing of you can exile target creature and then choose whether or not you want to return it back. So essentially, either a flicker or a removal spell. And then creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Tap all creatures your opponents control. So I think the flavor for this, as described to me by Infinity Chef, is this is one planeswalker on a multi-planeswalker heist, and this is kind of the careful one, hence the vigilance and the -2, which feels like
Ooh.
get out of there, or like no, actually I'm gonna get this guy out of here, kind of thing. So.
Okay. Yeah, in contrast with other mindsets present, you can then demonstrate the, I guess, skeptical mindset.
And I like that, like this in green white, because I think they were specifically looking for their purposes to have it outside of blue, because I think they already had a density of blue planeswalkers.
Oh yeah,
But like in general, I think we had lots of blue cards today, so also for our purposes, it's interesting to see a design out of that.
yeah. It's interesting how certain words lend themselves to strongly to a certain color.
Hmm. And like, yeah, I would not have imagined Cynic to be one of those, but here we are. Okay.
Uh, Speaking of other colors that are not blue, go with Urban Skeptic. It's one and a red/green hybrid. 2/1. It has sudden abilities can't activate and spells can't be cast until all of this creature resolves. And then when it enters the battlefield, target player attacks an artifact or enchantment. If they do, add 2 mana of any one color and draw a card. So this one, it enables split second, but for creatures would enter the battlefield.
It's interesting, but also, I'm sorry, Juliet. I don't know how much I vibe with it because I think that ETB effects are already like reasonably difficult to respond to. They're like a way of getting value that is if you don't have stack interaction is instantaneous. So I feel like making it harder to respond to those might not be a good idea. I'm not sure how much I vibe with the naturalize plus what is I forgot the name of the everyone knows what elf I'm talking about, the one that refunds itself on ETB. But
Oh,
I
okay.
think
Yeah, yeah.
I,
The
because,
shaman.
yeah, because it feels a little bit swingy in that respect, where it's like it's either just a 2/1 or it kills one of their pieces and also is free. So,
Yeah, there's a big swing. So if this were a instant spell that had split second and allowed the effect instead of an ETB, but it was an instant effect, but then also said create a 2/1 token, that would feel better, right? Because there's no ETB effect.
a little. I think I would. I'm like I think stuff that reduces interaction points in general leaves me feeling a little bit like not as comfortable. But
Yeah.
that might just be me. I think. But yeah, I think. But okay. What I do appreciate about this card though is I think that like all of Juliet's designs for because these are all both for Moxtober, but they're also for her own personal Jumpstart remix project, which it works on kind of making cool new designs for each of the like Ravnica guilds.
Mm.
I like that it's because I think this, in terms of like Gruul philosophy, like this is very vexing Shusher, where it's like no, you will not stop me. So I think
Yeah. Yeah,
it
yeah.
plays cleanly into that existing space, but in a new way. So I definitely respect that. Okay, I think is it about that time of the show where we talk about our own designs?
Sure.
Okay.
Uh, do
Oh
you
yeah.
have mine?
I was gonna go first because I feel like I make you go first a lot. So mine
Okay.
is Mad Pyrophet. Um, Three in a red for a human wizard. Whenever you discard a card, it deals one damage to each opponent, and you can tap it to discard a card and draw a card. So when I thought of of Cynic, the first card I thought of was Mad Prophet from Innistrad, just
Mm.
being like, all of you are crazy. You do not see that the rapture is coming, that kind of thing. And I knew I wanted to do uh, kind of a variant on it. And so I mashed it up with probably one of my other favorite red cards from Innistrad, which is Thermo Alchemist. So here, it's essentially a Thermo Alchemist effect plus the rummaging, um, which has the same cost and stat line as Mad Prophet. It just trades the haste for the ability to start pinging like insanely if you have multiple discard outlets.
Mm.
I was actually
Yeah.
fairly happy with this design. I feel like it's simple, but it plays into some new space, which is something that I like.
Yeah, it's funny that it makes me want to, like, sometimes I'm rummaging until I get what I want, but this turns it on its head where I know what I want is rummaging, so it doesn't matter what I draw. I actually just want to keep discarding.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I might get into a point where I look at a card and I go, "Wait a minute. Actually, do I want to cast this?" But if I
Because sometimes,
rummage,
yeah, because sometimes you just have like cards that are bad in a board state, but dealing burn is a surefire way of killing them eventually.
hmm,
Okay, so what was your card for today's challenge?
the Black Rose's regards, which isn't in this file, I think.
Oh my God. Okay, give me a second. I'll pull it up. My bad. I think what happened was I opened up the article while collecting cards, and then I forgot to come back to the article. So I'll pull it up here in just a sec.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna just let us just skip it. Uh, and we could just. Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, we could skip. I could talk about something else instead. Okay, means I gotta pull it up. You got it? Or are you still getting it?
Okay, so
Huh?
talk to me about the newly pulled up that I definitely didn't just pull out of my ass. Black Rose's Regard.
Oh yeah, the Black Roses regards. It's a two red red instant, uncommon. It deals 4 damage to any target, and it has cynical for a red. If an opponent attacked only other players while you control no untapped creatures this turn, you may cast a spell for red. If you do, choose that player and or permanents they control for this spell's targets. So sometimes you get into a commander game and you're wide open and they got creatures one and a player does, and of all the things they decide to do, they don't attack you. You were free to attack, they don't attack you. Like, maybe that's a charity case, but maybe, you know what, they actually are trying to gain favor and be like, remember that time when I didn't attack you? And you're like, no, you're not going to manipulate me like that. So there's the cynicism, and that's rewards you for punishing someone that didn't uh, do what they should have usually done, which is, hurt you.
Yeah, I like this. It's very specific, but it gets back into that multiplayer thing of like, this is, I think, anyone who's ever played Commander has experienced this, where it's like, everyone's like, dude, don't attack that player. They've played like ramp spells, but they don't have any board presence, and then that player untaps and just like is like, okay, so I'll play Primeval Titan, and you're like, oh no.
Uh, yeah,
So yeah, it's
yeah,
like, no, you're
it's
not
so
getting
tough.
away with this time. Everyone gets hurt.
Yeah,
It would be
even with
interesting
one
if
turn
the
rotation.
keyword could be not just if it was you, but if like if an opponent attacked a player while like another player had controlled no untapped creatures, something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you're like, you
Would you
should have
want?
attacked that.
Would you want to have it so that you are able to trigger it, or is that that feels like you can then set up maybe situations too easily? But yeah, if it's that an opponent attacked other player, heck yeah, that's really tough to word.
Yeah, but you get what I'm
I
saying though,
get
right?
you.
In
I
terms,
get
yeah,
you.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. It's like they should have taken the opportunity.
Yeah, and flavor wise, I think isn't the Black Rose Marchesa?
Yeah. Yeah. Marchesa, the current residing queen, that's kind of vicious on conspiracy Fiora. I thought that was it was cool to do a mono red card for her finally, since there's she has a suite of other cards that to portray people doing her bidding in mono black, mono blue, blue red, but no like mono red. And she's been red for both of her incarnations, so I thought it'd be cool to finally do a red thing that it does damage. So it's like, how do you? Oh, okay, she probably has some people sending a message.
Yup, yeah, and like, I feel like regards is such like a royal political intrigue type phrase. So, yeah, it feels like it hits the
Yeah.
flavor note well. Okay, and I think with that, I have two cards I want to talk about, but purely for the flavor text. So if you have any designs you'd like to talk about, let's hit them.
Okay. Um, let's do let's do a hilarious one. I didn't expect. Grub Dug the Cynic. Grub Dug the Cynic is a goblin advisor. Pay two and a red. For a 2/3. Elementals you control have two tap. Sacrifice this creature. You gain 3 life. It flavor text is it walks, it fights back, and it smells. It must be food.
Like,
So
what a classification, Grub Dug. The taxonomy.
yeah, yeah. I okay, so this it's funny that like last episode I got excited by the elementals in blue red type of direction, which is what I want to see in a future magic commander. This one is just mono red and elementals again, but it's like well now you want to build a deck that cares about maybe a combination of playing lots of elementals, maybe sacrifice matters, but also life matters or having lots of life.
Yeah, definitely. It asks a lot of you, but I think that there are going to be players who are like, yeah, sure, I can make that work. Come on. Um,
Yeah.
I kind of would like this is close enough to like silver bordered that like I kind of almost wish it had gone all the way and been like non-corporeal creatures you control have basically turns them into food.
Yeah. Now, it does effectively gain you life in red. So now it's like elementals are like they are in red, um, and they but they're also like in a lot of blue, and blue doesn't gain life either. Or I guess if you played a commander deck, but that
Yeah,
doesn't matter
it's
the
weird
value.
because like Commander is almost like an anything goes format just because of its eternal nature. But yeah, color pie wise, this is a little bit sketchy. But I think fun wise, why
Yeah.
not?
If it said, I guess this would be a cannibal, but if it said goblins, then oh no, sorry. Okay, the other way around. If it said a creature type that only appears in white, you know you got something. Although I guess that's kind of, or I guess how about a creature type that appears in white and green? Like then you know that you got something you could build around, and it kind of means you do have to play green and or white to justify the life gain.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that, but that makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense because
like
then,
eating Kithkin or something.
but we want to go for that non-corporeal flavor. So
Yeah, that's true.
spirits could work, but that's in blue as well.
Yeah, that'd be like Kamigawa. Yeah, the forest spirits. You can't denote that though. Yeah. Anyway,
hmm
that's a funny flavor.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you get for eating elementals. Yeah, so I think the last two cards I want to feature are also because I thought they had just funny flavor text. The first one is Haggard Bandit, where you have this grumpy looking guy surrounded by these happy minstrels. Nothing drains a vampire's morale quite like a merry minstrel. And I like the
Um,
flavor of like whenever you gain life, it gets +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn, which like usually for vampires that's flavored as like they they're like getting like the power from like whatever blood they've drunk or whatever. But here I like it as like they're making you gain life through their jaunty tunes, and he's like, "Stop that racket," and so he gets up to like punch back at
yeah,
them.
gets upset and thus more menacing, and I guess more stabby with the plus on zero.
Yeah, and the other design or like the other flavor text I wanted to talk about was also from the same designer. It is Jaded Cynic. Um, Here we go. It's a vampire, and it says banquets, festivals, parties. Goodness, Whatever happened to the good old days of everyone living in fear? Like these
Ah,
I love the idea because vampires are also like on Innistrad shown to be like very like what do you call it? Aristocratic and enjoying the finer things in life. So I also like this depiction of a vampire as just like an introvert and just wants to hunt down lone humans.
yeah, yeah. It reminds me of the silver bordered vampire, which with the Pyre, which kind of shows a more I guess this. Oh yeah, old fashioned vampire. Kind of so yeah that the ways of before are different than how the vampires are of now, and yeah, there's definitely like different, modern vampires can be have evolved over time, and especially sometimes they sparkle. And yeah, so these ones, the I guess the more red black Innistrad ones you talked about could taps into the enjoying things in a party way.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think with that we can wrap up the episode. Thanks once again
Awesome.
for watching, y'all. Um, the prompt for today, October 7th, is Mithril. So if you want your design to potentially be featured in this video and to be added to the collected MSC set file, the previous ones of which you can find in the description, make sure to, if you're on Twitter, tag your post with MTG Moxtober. And if you're on Discord or Reddit, tag your post with Moxtober or MTG Moxtober, because I'll be searching both there. And tomorrow's video is going to be on our day 6 prompt, Lance. And we're also going to have a special guest, Ancestral, who is the developer and designer of MTG.design, which is one of the premier custom card creation services out there. So that's going to be super cool.
Awesome.
But yeah, until then, this is Caillou and Bradley signing off.
See ya.